Hi guys, this is gsn.com and I'm here with the phone which has the selfie camera hidden under the screen. ZTE Axon 25G. It's a super high mid-range device which, as I said before, is a bit of a pioneer when it comes to integrating the selfie camera. We don't have any pop-up mechanisms, any sort of notches or punch holes. The camera is placed here below the screen panel, and if you look closely you can probably see it, but more about that later. Now the phone itself is priced at around the $500. You can probably find it on Amazon and has two versions. More about that in the description and in the text review. Now this smartphone was unveiled in September last year and it started reaching the global market, especially Europe, in December 2020. It's a huge device with a 6.9-inch screen, and let's get straight to the design. Now, it may be huge at 6.92 inches, but it's actually pretty comfy to wield, and believe it or not, it's not even slippery. It makes some nifty wave effects at the backside. This is obviously glass that we're dealing with here. And we also have what appears to be a plastic frame. It's actually plastic on top of a metal frame, and this frame protrudes, which helps you hold the device a bit better in your hands, so it helps with the grip. It's an odd decision to not have a singular volume buttons. We have split volume buttons and you can definitely confuse some of them. Luckily the power button is ripped in order to be found more easily. Now 8mm in thickness and a decent 198 grams. It doesn't go full 200 and plus grams in spite of the big diagonal. It's got a pretty premium build, and since it's so long, the weight is pretty well distributed. Now the camera protrudes a little bit, not by an excessive amount, and that's pretty much it. Well built, at the same time premium materials and a pretty nice grip. Now the screen you're seeing right here, well, we are dealing with an OLED, so that's a plus. It's an OLED display with 6.92 inch diagonal and a resolution of 2460 over 1080 pixels. It displays 1 billion colors, has a 90 Hz refresh rate, and I'll admit it, pretty big bezels. I mean, the chin is definitely present here, and the side bezels are also something to notice. This screen that you're seeing right here has 3 core components integrated within it. We have the fingerprint scanner, which is, as you can see, triggered in the lower area. We have the selfie camera here, which I'm pretty sure you can see there's a square here flickering. It's visible barely and only on whiter backgrounds. And then we have the earpiece replacement. It's a vibrator motor. It's a piezoelectric piece which replaces the earpiece. Now, enough about that. I don't want to get too technical. If you want to evaluate the screen, you're definitely going to have to watch a video to perform that. We no longer have to worry about notches and punch holes, so the experience is immersive and symmetrical, even though, as I said before, the chin is on the big side. Now the screen is quite bright, the image is crisp, we have very vivid colors, of course not as vivid as a Samsung Galaxy S20 or S21 panel, but still quite vivid. The black is deep and we have wide view angles. The image remains visible even at extreme angles, so that's nice. The contrast was also pretty solid in sunlight, and I'm pretty happy with the experience delivered by this OLED. The pixels have a pentalometric arrangement, and now we get to the measurements, because we measured the brightness and achieved a pretty top level here, 586 lux units. This means that we surpassed the Galaxy S21, the OnePlus 8 and the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, so we're in pretty select company. We're below the Oppo Reno 4 Lite and the Huawei Mate 40 Pro, as well as the Xiaomi Mi 10 Lite 5G. Now, if you want to tweak your experience for this gigantic panel, you're going to have to, let's see. So you go here, the display, you got your brightness level, you got your refresh rate, either 60 or 90 Hz. You can also set up the display optimization, which basically changes the contrast, sharpness and saturation in order to enhance the display and improve visual effects. We have a dark mode, we have a read mode, we have a night light and screen effect, which basically sets the color to warm, normal or cool. There are the top area settings. You can actually hide that small square for the selfie camera with a special status bar, and font size and display size. I think we've covered everything display wise, and I think it's time to go inside the phone where we can find the Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G processor. This is a 7nm chip octa-core coupled with the Adreno 620 GPU, and we also have the device here with 8 gigs of RAM. There's also a version with 6 gigs of RAM. The storage is available here in 128 gigabytes, and there's also a micro SD card slot which is shared with one of the SIM slots. Luckily there's no trace of lag here, so you can definitely run some games and well, open up a lot of apps. You'll never experience lag. That's one positive feature here. So gamers will actually be happy with the immersiveness of the bright screen and the fact they can run basically anything, even more intensive shooters like Call of Duty Mobile or the RPG Genshin Impact. When it comes to benchmarks, here comes Antutu 8 with a solid score, 330K. I mean, I know it's half or something of the Galaxy S20 Ultra, but here we go. So we were able to beat the OnePlus Nord and the Oppo Reno 4 Pro 5G, which is a bit more expensive. We also beat the Motorola Edge, which is pretty pricey, but we scored below the cheaper Huawei P40 Lite 5G and also below the Xperia 5 and Galaxy S10 Plus. Now we go to Geekbench 5, the multi-core subtest. Here we are. We are beating the Motorola Moto G 5G, while at the same time surpassing Xiaomi Mi 10 Lite 5G and the Motorola Edge. We still scored below the Huawei Nova 5T and Galaxy S10 5G. Gamers, as usual, have this landmark. It's 3D Mark Slingshot Extreme ES 3.1, and we're able to beat the pricey Moto Razr 5G, which is a plus, as well as the Oppo Reno 4 Pro 5G. So those are the things to take home here, plus the formerly pricey, now decent Nokia 8.3 5G. At the same time, we got beaten by the Huawei P40 Lite 5G, which seems to always catch us and beat us when it comes to, well, performance, and also got beaten by the older Huawei P30 Pro. In general, it's a typical Snapdragon 765G phone with the typical results you'd expect. And if you're wondering about the temperature, which is pretty vital if you're going to deem this gaming phone, here we are. In benchmarks, 34.2 degrees Celsius, no overheating. In games, 33.2 degrees Celsius, once again, no overheating. And now let's talk about the battery. Okay, so for such a huge diagonal, you'd expect a large battery, maybe something even going past 5000 mAh. Well, actually, it's a more modest presentation. You're getting a 4220 mAh battery with a promise of 30 watt charging, which on paper should get you to 60% battery in 30 minutes. Let's see what it actually delivered. First of all, video playback. We achieved 13 hours and 57 minutes, not very impressive, it's just okay. It managed to beat the Samsung Galaxy A51, iPhone 11 even, plus the Galaxy S20 Ultra, if you're counting. It stayed below the Huawei P40 Lite 5G and the Poco X3 NFC, as well as the Xiaomi Mi 10T Pro. When it comes to PC Mark, once again, a pretty okay result, 10 hours and 2 minutes. It doesn't break records, it's just passable, it's good. Once again, above the Galaxy S21 if you're counting, and also above the Nokia 9 PureView, as well as the Galaxy S20 Ultra by a small margin. It doesn't exactly beat other Snapdragon 765G phones. That one I can imagine. Of course, it stays below the Huawei P40 Lite 5G, the OnePlus Nord, Nokia 8.3 5G, and quite a few other phones with the same CPU I keep mentioning. Now the charging is actually pretty okay. A full charge, 100%, is done in 58 minutes, and after 15 minutes you're at 33%, after half an hour 57%, so it delivers on the promise of what I said before. So the charging is the star of the show here. But in the end, not the most long-lasting battery, I'll admit that. Okay, now we have settings for adaptive battery, we have settings for optimization, power saving and ultra power saving, so maybe you can compensate from there. When it comes to acoustics, I'm already expecting the lack of an audio jack. We got a bundled adapter, which goes from USB-C to 3.5mm. We only have the singular speaker here for music. The other one should be the earpiece, but there's no earpiece here, so we have the, once again, piezoelectric mechanism. Now the actual experience, the audio playback one, let's see how it's doing. Okay, so a bunch of conclusions. I have to say that when you're really reaching the high volume, the top volume, the sound may be a bit disturbing, it may be a bit bothersome. Depends very much on the tune you're listening to. If it's all guitar solo, it may bother you. If it's a warmer set of notes, it should be fine. In general, I found the volume to be quite high. And aside from that, the high notes were okay, the voice is okay, so 70% volume should be your default for this phone, otherwise it's too much. By the way, not much bass here, so there's that. This is our acoustic test, our acoustic sample test, 85.1 decibels. It goes above Galaxy S21 Plus, it goes above the Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro and Galaxy S20 Fan Edition. 5G, of course. It stays below, with this value, below the Nokia 8.3 5G and the LG Velvet plus the Moto G 5G. A better result was achieved in gaming, actually a gigantic result, 106.8 decibels, fourth placed phone. Above it are hardcore hitters like Nokia 8.1 and Asus ROG phone. Otherwise we beat hundreds of other phones when it comes to this one. So when you're gaming, you're going to have your mind blown away by this little fellow. Perhaps too much volume, as I said before. Now, I want to talk about the cameras, and I'm going to start with the selfie camera. As I mentioned before, it's hidden here in a square below the screen, below actually two panels of the screen, and one of them has a lower resolution, and these pixels are disguised in a way which hides it. It's a first generation, it's a first attempt, it's a first commercial product with the selfie camera here, and as such, it has its drawbacks. It's a 32 megapixel shooter. It takes the shots in full 32 megapixel resolution, doesn't mess around with pixel binding, and that's it. Shoots full HD video and does HDR. We go to the backside when you find the quad camera with LED flash here, and the module is pretty familiar. You've seen this design on many Huawei and Xiaomi phones. Here we have a, I would say, typical combo for a super high mid-ranger. 64 megapixel main, 8 megapixel ultra wide, 2 megapixel macro, 2 megapixel bokeh, and you can shoot 4K video, but I was actually shocked. You can shoot 4K video at 60 frames per second, not 30. You can also shoot HDR video, another surprise, and even on paper 10-bit video, not bad. There are also other useful options like I would say there's also a movie mode. We also have a portrait, HDR, vlog, and portraits are taken with a studio light, and bokeh is separate from portrait, so you can create, well, portrait photos of objects. There's also a night mode, just in case you're wondering. Now, something I don't see here, I don't see a dedicated gallery app, unless I'm missing it, so you're going to have to rely on Google Photos. Okay, so it was a pretty sunny day, actually mixed, some clouds and some sun, and this is a beautiful carousel. I would say that using the 64 megapixel camera, which produces 16 megapixel shots, we're getting enough details and quite well calibrated colors. This is the ultra wide shot. The details definitely decrease, and it's an odd feature here. Even though it's an 8 megapixel camera, we're somehow taking 16 megapixel shots, which feels a bit weird to me. Anyways, this is the zoom attempt. Up to 3x, it's okay, but more than that, I think it's actually too much. Several darker shots, and definitely the ultra-wide camera catches a bit of a darker image, if you ask me. We even played with some color effects here. They're available in the camera. One thing I noticed is that it's able to focus properly, no matter what the distance is, and we have some nice close-ups of a tripped-out frog. Actually several, because it's very amusing. The expression is priceless. And once again, I want to highlight the color calibration, which is spot on. And the focus. This is a macro shot, and it didn't take me, I don't know, 5 or 10 attempts, as it usually happens with a 2 megapixel macro camera. The first attempt was sufficient to deliver what I wanted. And you finally get to see the sky. It's a bit more light blue compared to the real one, which my eye perceived, which was a bit darker, but still pretty well managed. And regular shot, ultra wide shot, as you can see this time, it's not darker, it's lighter than the other one. You can also get a lot of texture here. You can tell the way the time has worn these objects. And I'm talking about metal, plastic, wood, the way the time has caused them to have dents, for example. Once again, the focus is nice, and you can also mess around with the bokeh shots, and let's actually go there. Another example of a proper and well taken set of macros. Even though it's 2 megapixels and details will be lacking, the colors are okay yet again, particularly the blues and the reds, even though the reds may feel a bit too intense at times. And here we are at the core of the experience. Everybody's asking me how and what are the selfies like. I mean, they're a bit poor, I'll admit it. It's a 4th generation camera, it cannot be avoided, it's a bit of a pioneer, and that usually happens. In spite of that, the colors of the clothes are okay, that much I can say, but the biggest problem is with the background, which feels a bit ghostly behind me. We're also lacking enough traits captured here, enough expression lines of the face to feel you're actually expressing something with the selfie. The face is too smooth, that much I can say. Okay, even more selfies, and if you get closer to the camera, you'll actually like the results better. The bokeh shots are a bit better than the regular ones, but there are some weird artifacts around the head when you're trying to separate your head from the background. So there's that. Once again, the photos are pretty white, washed out, a bit milky, and the background is definitely ghostly, even when you don't have the bokeh activated. I know that on this screen they may look okay, but if you see them on a bigger screen, you're definitely going to notice that there's something from 3 generations ago, and still, it's a work in progress. Some of the best bokeh shots are taken of this Mickey Mouse. It's excellently cut from its background, and it accentuates the texture. You can really see it through. Now, these are more vivid colors, one of the most vivid in the gallery, on ultra-wide and regular shots, so I'm pretty happy with these results. Overall, the colors are the most impressive things here, and also the focus. And we also tried out the portrait options, not bokeh, portrait, because it caught a human face, even if it's a statue. We even applied some studio effects, not the most accurate in the world, but still we're there. Okay, so that's that. The selfie camera is a work in progress. It's a 4th generation, and actually the 2nd generation was already announced, so looking forward to seeing that. This was the daytime gallery. Let's go to the nighttime. First impression, the shots are a bit darker than expected. And this one here, the pavement looks pitch black with an interesting reflection on account of the rain. Now, if you're activating the night mode, things get a bit too intense. I have 2 problems here. The regular image is too dark, the night mode image is too bright. So somewhere in between is the real potential of the camera. This is one of the best pictures. It calibrates everything perfectly, and that's that. Of course, the ultra-wide is a bit of a disappointment. I'm saying of course because 99% of the ultra-wide cameras fail at night. We also have some missed shots, which are a bit blurry and moved, but this is the most relevant one, regular shot and night mode shot, which is too bright, but at the same time good enough to post on social media. So you have to choose between too bright and too dark, but sometimes you'll just take the right shot and that's about it. Not the worst I've seen, to be honest. It's okay for the super high mid-range segment, and now I think it's time to talk about the videos. Okay, so let's see the videos we took with this handset. I'm going to go here, and we have 9 of them. Let's check them out one by one. First of all, we have a stabilization test here, which looks something like this. I noticed that the exposure was a bit flickery during this. As you can see, some areas are darker while others are lighter, but they fluctuate too much in order for this viewing to be enjoyable. I mean, the flicker is not annoying when I'm walking around, but the fluctuating exposure may be a bit bothersome. In the end, a modest stabilization, and this theory is enhanced by this video. If you're watching it on a bigger screen, you'll see that there's a bit of shakiness going on here, and it, interestingly enough, cannot be played by this player, so I'm going to have to go and play it using a different one, oddly enough. This is the video. Let's check it out. Now, a lot of shakiness, and in spite of that, we have a solid amount of details, and the colors are just as satisfying as they were in the photo department. Once again, this camera can shoot 4K 60 frames per second videos, and the wide angle of this shot makes me think that it may be shot with the ultra-wide camera, although I wouldn't exactly bet on it. So happy with the colors and details, but the stabilization definitely could have been better. So let's stay here since we're here, and let's see other videos. For example, this one. The focus is also pretty much on point. I would say that overall it feels pretty close to the Oppo Reno 4 Pro 5G minus the stabilization. So that's the comparison I'm making, and reasonably close to the Galaxy A71 filming wise. And we also have a focus test here, which is this one. Focus on the foreground and on a close-up object. Excuse me, close-up and background alternating. And of course we also have a selfie video, which is this one. Definitely shows there's a bit of fogginess going on here. You feel a temptation to rub your eyes. It's as if you have the cobweb or spider web on top of your eyes. That's the vibe I'm getting here. Room for improvement for sure, but once again it's a generation 1.0, so it was to be expected. The microphone was okay, even though some gusts of wind may definitely affect it negatively. And we also have a video or two shot during the nighttime, like this one here. By the way, forgot to mention that the zoom is actually quite solid, even though we don't have a telephoto camera. And the low light video is actually not that bad compared to my expectations. I mean, the image does tremble a bit and shake, but the colors are pretty on point, even though they're a bit warm and tend to be a bit reddish. The clarity is pretty okay, and the brightness is also rather satisfying. And once again, the zoom, not exactly bad, to be honest. So that's it. Remember my comparison, somewhere between the Galaxy A71 and the Oppo Reno 4 Pro 5G. Now on the connectivity front, this handset is available in a single SIM and dual SIM version. It provides you with 4G and 5G connectivity, so that's nice. At the same time, it has a Wi-Fi dual band, plus Bluetooth 5.1, GPS, AGPS, GLONASS, Galileo and BDS, as well as NFC and a USB-C 3.1 port at the bottom. Would have been nice if we had an infrared emitter here at the top, but you cannot get everything. Now, there's no earpiece here, so there's a piezoelectric mechanism which makes the screen vibrate and emit sounds. Sadly, it doesn't perform as well as an earpiece would. The sound may seem pretty muffled at times. We did some tests with the speed test app. These are the results we achieved. They are huge in the Wi-Fi department. We scored as high as 622 megapsec in download and 625 megapsec in upload. These are crazy results here on Wi-Fi. And on 4G, 198 megapsec downloads over 57.3. We're actually not doing that bad. The phone handles 5G, but we couldn't catch a connection of this sort, so there's that. Now, as far as the software is concerned, this is called the MiFavor 10.5. It's applied on top of Android 10. Would have been nice if we actually had Android 11, but not just yet. It's a very minimalistic and bare bones interface. It doesn't add anything. I mean, there is no extra app in here, or extra modes, extra settings, extra multitasking mechanisms, nothing. So this is how the multitasking happens, this carousel. And of course, giving you the option to provide a split screen. Swipe down and you're treated to a pretty old school approach to the notifications and quick settings. And here we have the actual settings where you can mess about with the notifications, apps, battery, home screen and lock screen. And be advised, there are multiple always on options here. You can apply multiple styles, provided that it's actually activated. And they're pretty cool to choose from. Some of them pretty old school and nice looking, but battery consuming. You can display a pedometer. You have those extra features here like 5G smart communication, this one here with adaptive 5G, the AI system engine which keeps things up and running. With AI, you don't need to tweak anything. There's a system navigation, so you can replace these buttons here with swipe gestures. You can have the one-handed mode, you have the record screen option for developers and gamers, and location, security, digital well-being. Okay, now, as far as the security is concerned, we have a fingerprint scanner here, plus the face verification. Together they make a good team, but on its own, the fingerprint scanner isn't exactly fast or accurate. So that's something to remember. Now, as far as the pre-installed apps go, nothing to mention here. We see Facebook is pre-installed, there's a game assist, and there's no optimization app. Usually Chinese phone makers provide you with a cleaner, an optimization app. I see we have WPS Office and something called Game Assist, which could come in handy, and they really support my theory. We're dealing here with a bit of a gaming phone, even though it's not promoted as such. Do not disturb, enhancement, optimization, which I mentioned before, and general settings. So that's nice. Okay, so I think this is the end of the review. It's a pretty fluid interface, even though it doesn't exactly add anything to the typical Android. And if you want to see the widgets, they're all stock. Now it's time for the verdict, and as I tell you the verdict, I think I'm going to play a little game. It's called War Friends, and let's see what are the pros and cons for this handset. First, I'm going to claim something here. Okay, fight. On the pro side, it's a good looking device. At the same time, it has a pretty solid screen, large and generous. Okay performance for a super high mid-ranger. A pretty decent battery, to be honest. At the same time, the charging was okay in my book. The speaker is definitely loud. You can say anything about it except for the fact it's not loud. It's definitely loud and generous. We have pretty okay colors when it comes to picture taking and video taking, so nothing to complain in that regard. I would also say that the night mode is satisfying and delivers. We have a pretty okay zoom in videos and photos, and the Wi-Fi is, as you saw before, pretty fast. Those are the pros. On the cons, definitely the selfie camera generation 1.0, the inevitable troubles are here, and second generation already looks promising. The piezoelectric mechanism for the earpiece not impressive, and the fingerprint scanner should have been just a bit faster. Okay, so I seem to be losing the battle here, so I should probably focus more on killing those guys. Okay, so back to the cons, which I mentioned before. Selfie camera, piezoelectric fingerprint scanner, and I should probably mention the small battery for such a large screen. I mean, at least 5000 mAh would have been nice. Also, the fact that the speaker at the bottom for music may sound a bit annoying at maximum volume. That's something that may happen every once in a while. Plus the fact that the interface may seem like it doesn't stand out from the crowd, doesn't take risks or deliver any sort of special features or extras. That's a vibe I caught here. Okay, so we're done with the pros and cons. I have to mention that this one is a surprise gaming phone. Leave everything aside, that's at its core. It's very close to 7 inches in diagonal. It's got a high-performing CPU. It's got a solid OLED panel here. So for gaming, it checks out. It's a good gaming device. It's a good multimedia device. You can watch Netflix on it on YouTube for hours and hours. It takes pictures and videos with well-calibrated colors and quite a few details. It's a media phone, a comfy one at that. It's probably the easiest to wield huge phone I've seen over the past year. Easier to wield than the Nokia 8.3, Motorola Moto G9 Plus, and the Galaxy S20 Ultra. So there's that. The camera is okay in its own segment, super high mid-range, but the selfie camera needs some work, which is already in progress. This is from gsn.com. Hope you enjoyed this. Remember, this ZTE phone works best as a gaming phone, multimedia phone, and for some pictures and videos. Bye bye.